with Nick Beres.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. And Nick Beres with you on this Wednesday. Appreciate you being here. We've got a good show on tap for you. Listen, as long as I've lived here in the great city of Nashville, I've always wondered, and maybe you have if you live here or if you visited, there's so much to do here, but could there be more done with the river that comes right through the city? And I'm not just talking about over on 2nd and 1st Avenue on this side, but on the East Bank as well. And over the years, yeah, it certainly has changed. We have a football stadium over there, and on this side, you know, we have Riverfront Park that's developed. But as you may or may not know, a big project is in the works now to talk about East Bank redevelopment. That's what they'll be looking at. I think it's basically a done deal. There were some renderings that have already been put together showing what it may look like. And we're going to talk about the future of basically the riverfront here in the great city and the East Bank and some of how it may come over to this side that we're on as well. With our guest with us this morning talking about is Harriett Brooks. She is a landscape architect, which I think has got to be a pretty cool job. And you're involved in this, aren't you?
I am, yes.
I mean, isn't it a pretty big chunk you've bitten off here? Are you sure you can handle it? This is a big...
Not by myself.
Certainly not. There, you know, the mayor, and you have so many people you're working with, but landscape architects, and, you know, what you'll be doing is helping coming up with the look and what will be the basis for how it's developed, correct, moving forward?
Right, yes.
Okay, just talk about, just up front, when people say redeveloping the East Bank, what does that mean? Where are we talking about specifically?
So to me, it starts with the river.
Okay, sure.
With an opportunity to connect our downtown and the east side of the river.
Okay.
That historically has been neglected, has been industrial property. It's sitting in floodplain. Right now, it's about 120 acres of asphalt surrounding Nissan Stadium. Mm-hmm. And so there's a real opportunity there to transform it into a really great set of neighborhoods in the city. And so the area geographically that we're talking about on the north side is Jefferson Street.
From Jefferson Street,
From
the
Jefferson
bridge. Okay. Street
Bridge to the south to the Interstate Bridge.
Okay.
And then the river on the west side, it's Cumberland River, and on the east side is the interstate, is I-24. Okay. So it's about 338 acres, almost 2 linear miles along the riverbank on the east side, right across from downtown.
Okay, and I think people have seen it, but just for folks who don't, or as you perceive it, what do you describe over there now? How would you describe the East Bank right now?
So the most notable landmark is Nissan Stadium.
Sure, right.
Which is surrounded by a lot of parking lot, as we mentioned. There are also there's Cumberland Park that sits down there. There are some industrial properties that are still in operation, including SA Recycling, but also there are several churches, but mostly kind of light industrial properties, a couple of hotels, churches, gas stations, that kind of thing, and a whole lot of parking.
And that's been in a whole lot of parking. And so when you talk about the industrial, is that, it used to be Steiner Lift, I'm not sure what it is now, the metal scraps yard, is that involved in this area there where the scrap yard is and all the metal, and those barges come and they're dumping the metal onto the barges which make their way down the river? That's there.
Right, so that is within the study area.
That is within the study. So, okay, that for years is something that we've talked about, you know, it's pretty, and then there. And I understand why that's there on the river. There serves a purpose. It's easy to move the metal onto the barges. But so where does that stand? I'm just curious. What is it in talks that would somehow be asked to move or be sold, or what's going to happen with that?
So that is a great question.
Okay, I just wondered, because that always has jumped out to me from the day I moved here. I'm like,
right, that's
an eyesore. But again, as I say, it's an eyesore. I understand it. There's a reason it's there.
Right, and that is private property, so that's an eyesore.
It's been there for years.
But it's a viable business. It's been there for years. What we focused on this project was really laying the groundwork for the infrastructure. Okay. And so by that, we're talking about a viable road network. Right now, there's not a single way continuous route north to south through the East Bank.
Yeah.
And right on the other side of Jefferson to the north is where Oracle is going to go.
Right.
And so Oracle is proposing 8,500 jobs. There's going to be a lot more circulation.
There'll be a lot more traffic.
And a lot
right?
more traffic if we don't lay the groundwork for the infrastructure now. Another catalyst for the project was we were starting to see some of the other properties on the East Bank. The TA truck stop is a big one.
Right.
There was a proposal that came in for that site that was over 30. It had 3 towers that were about 30 stories each. So, but there's no road network down there.
Right.
And so there's this real need that if we're starting to get these proposals in for basically another downtown on the east side of the river, we need to lay the groundwork for a road network, transit, utilities, all the things that you need to be able to make walkable, livable neighborhoods. So that was the real catalyst for this. And the real pressure that we're seeing, it's probably coming more from the north side, thinking about what's going to be happening with Oracle. The TA side is kind of on the northern end of the study area. And so that will probably, we're anticipating, be the part that starts to develop first.
Okay.
And then it will move kind of south.
Make its way down.
Right.
All right, that makes sense. But what you're describing here then is, we all know just how vibrant, this side of the river is, okay?
Right.
Except, frankly, I've always thought, there needs to be more on First Avenue. I never understood why all the facing is on Second. I guess this is
There's
the
a
way
great
it is.
opportunity there.
Okay, but you have that. But I mean, what we're talking about creating on the East Bank is more of what it's expanding the city, and we're talking about businesses, restaurants, living space, everything going in over there.
Correct.
So where though? I mean, I'm just trying to get a handle on this, and we're going to show some images. By the way, the monitor's not on in here. I want you to see that, but I'll get that up there. But we'll show some images here in a moment. Where does it all go? Because as you said, when I think over there, I think the scrapyard, I think the football field, and I think parking. That's it. So, I mean, to put all this stuff in there, is it going to be back behind that? Is it going to be in front of it? Or you have a plan to, get parking down in the ground instead and do things where the parking lots are there?
Yes. So the plan is that this will really be transformed into mixed-use urban neighborhoods. What you think of?
It's just hard for me to imagine.
It's really hard to imagine.
How many square miles maybe are we talking about? Do we have a number on that?
So they're 338 acres.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly how that transforms to square miles. It's about 2 linear miles of riverfront.
Okay, we're going to show some B-rolls. We talk about this. I guess these are some of the renderings or some of the video of the area. Take a look. That's what we're talking about, like this, right?
Right, exactly. So,
Wow.
I mean, really imagine it being transformed into mixed-use neighborhoods for Nashvilleians. And so we're talking about communities, complete neighborhoods.
Okay, so there's the aerials of what it looks like now, okay? And I'm like, well, where the heck are you going to put all those images we
see
just
those
saw?
parking lots?
Yeah, they're gone.
There's a lot of room there.
Okay, but then where are we going to park for the football game?
Well, all of the parking will be within structured parking within some of these buildings.
Okay, so it'll either be built up or built down into the ground.
Correct.
And then the pedestrian bridge, which is already linking, both banks of the river going across, correct?
Yes.
And so it'll go all along that stretch there. Again, landscaping, I see the trees there. This is where it blows me away. I look at this, and it looks like a lot of the new development that we've just gotten on this side of the river.
Right. So this is a rendering of South 2nd Street, wow. which will be just it's a north-south corridor that we're imagining that will be through the East Bank, but it will include cycling lanes. There's a very big emphasis on transit and also pedestrian activities. So we're really focusing on ways that people can get around, not relying so much on automobiles. So when you're talking about parking, the ultimate goal is that there will be a reduced need for parking. But we are imagining providing the necessary parking for the stadium for events and that sort of thing that will need to happen, replacing what already exists to this day, which is about 7,000 spaces that are down there right now.
Is it about 7,000 or so?
Yes. So that will all be accommodated within the plan within structured parking, but it won't be parking that's visible to the street when you're walking down the street. We want it to be a lively, active area. We don't want cars dominating it. And so they're going to be hidden in parking, and so it's not going to be so car dominated.
These plans are approved, right?
Yes.
It's moving forward, and it'll be I guess a public-private project, right? I mean, there's a lot of private land there. There's what percentage of it is Metro-owned?
113 acres are Metro-owned, so it's about 1/3. 1/3
of it, and then. In terms of the cooperation or working, I guess part of the process now will be getting with the private landowners and discussing how this goes, whether some of them going to have to sell. I mean, I'm just wondering where the heck the scrapyard's going to go.
So I still don't have an answer for the scrapyard.
You're the architect. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But I mean, I wonder could it move further down the river? Will there be something to help them do that? No one can force them to do it, right? Can you do eminent domain in some of these cases?
So there will be certain amounts of acquisition needed for the boulevard, for the road network, in order to make that happen. That is all that has been talked about, and we have been working really hard with the property owners for the past 2 years. We've had extensive conversations with all of them and kind of talked through alignment of the boulevard, exactly where it might go depending on what ends up happening with the stadium, which is still kind of the big elephant in the room.
Listen, we're going to take a break and we'll come back and talk about that. We can take some phone calls too, 737-7587. Question, your thoughts on the expansion and the way I view it. I mean, this city's spectacular already. If what you're describing to me actually comes into fruition, and you're saying, what do you mean actually, Nick? It's going to happen. I mean, it just boggles the mind just how amazing this city is going to be if this comes in. But you're right. One thing to discuss, and I haven't asked it, is the stadium. Yeah, that's kind of like, all right, are they going to build a new one and will it be there? And what's going to happen if they have to tear this one down and build one next door? Are they going to rehab it? We'll get more into that with landscape architect who's in the middle of all this. We'll take a few of your phone calls and we'll talk more about the planned development of the east bank of the river, which really looks spectacular. It's exciting. We'll be right back after this.